Good evening. This is Community Unity Now. This is Bill Morton, my co-host. He is the president of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce, and I am Trudy Leong, administrator of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce. Our very special guest today is the Reverend Marilyn Pagán-Banks, Executive Director at A Just Harvest, one of our favorite organizations, and I think it's a favorite in the city as well because Reverend Marilyn, you do so much work to help alleviate hunger, and then you also try to address the roots of hunger and recently, you've been doing a lot of work trying to end mass incarceration, which, of course, leads to families being in a bad place and then being hungry. So could you tell us a little bit about your work against mass incarceration and Bill 5058, HB 5058?
Okay, well, thank you, Trudy, and thank you, Bill, for having me on here tonight. It's good to see you both and to talk about the work of A Just Harvest. We've been really trying to get our story out there a little bit more. So if we're the favorite of the city, that's news to me, but thank you so much for your support and your kind words. So we've been engaging in this work for quite a while now, and we were actually a part of forming the Coalition to End Money Bond and working. It started with a bunch of lawyers and policy folks, and they started to engage with community folks like us to begin to figure out how do we get this stuff, passed, like create legislation around it. And of course, as you know, the Pretrial Fairness Act did pass, and it's going to be implemented next year. And right now we're spending all of this year protecting it because already it's being attacked, right? And this bill that we're fighting against right now, really what they're trying to do is saying, okay, if we can't keep them locked up, then we're going to keep them on monitoring systems and lock them up in another way, right? And we all know that those systems are not reliable. And it's just another way of incarcerating people. People can't get to work. They can't look for work. They can't help with their families and just freely move around to be able to do the things that we want them to do in order to support and provide for the community and be part of the community, right? And that requires being able to engage and have some movement in some real ways. And so we are, we're fighting against it. And actually, right before this call tonight, they took it out of committee. And so what's going to happen now, it doesn't mean that it's over with, but it just means that they're just going to try to find new ways to try to fight it. So we're going to share an editorial with you later if you haven't seen it, that you could, look over in support of what we're doing at the Chicago Sun-Times around that work.
So this is some real advocacy. What steps are you taking to do this?
Well, right now, as you know, because we are hiring, what we do is share the word. So I'm glad that you invited us to talk about this on here because it's so important for us to be able to get the word out. And so we call our legislators, we sign petitions, we invite others to sign petitions and call their legislators. We were filing witness slips for folks who can't go down to Springfield. Maybe you don't know this, but you can file a witness slip online as a record of appearance, saying that you oppose a bill or are for it. So that's a good thing for people to know. And so that we believe that pressure is what caused them to shut this down today. And so we're excited by the fact that we know that they're paying attention to the fact that we are providing pressure. Just as of today, if you give me just 1 second, I pulled it up just so I can have it quickly in front of me. But we were trying to get 500 petitions and we were close. We were so close. And again, we think that that's why they decided not to deal with it right now.
So this bill was about trying to criminalize, make it a felony for any tampering with electronic monitoring. But you mentioned before that those devices might actually malfunction and seem like tampering or something like that. Could you describe it for us? And right now, if any device is malfunctions or anything, would the person that has that device, would they be criminalized now, even without that bill?
Okay, hold on one second. And I misspoke. So the hearing was canceled. So it's still gonna be brought back up, but the hearing has been canceled. So we're looking at it, like I said, as good news. And there's been over 1,000 opposition slips filed since this bill was introduced, and just almost 400 just today. And so, and like I said, there's an article in the Chicago sometimes around this. But your question around the people being criminalized, the fact is, anything can go wrong. The battery can die. It could be faulty, right? It could drop and something happen to it. It can get wet and it won't work properly. And the fact is, you ought not be criminalized because of some gadget that some company is making lots of money off of in order to further, find ways to keep people incarcerated, even if they're not behind bars. And so, we just don't believe. I mean, the fact of the matter is, once you give somebody a felony, that is something you've already created so many barriers in their life. And that's what we see. And that's why we believe mass incarceration is connected to poverty and hunger. Because once you have that felony, you lose so much access to things that you ought to have rights to. And then you lose access to good jobs, good living wage jobs. You lose access to benefits. You lose access to housing assistance. You can't stay with family who's receiving assistance. So that further breaks apart community and families, right? And so it's ridiculous to try to find ways again for those who are poor and the most vulnerable, who can't afford bail. So fine, let's work around that. And now we're going to put these devices, and it's just another way for the system to make money and to further criminalize people, Black people in particular, poor people in general. Yeah, I don't know if that answered your question. I'm not the technical one. I do have those answers thanks to Megan. She put some questions, the technical stuff. But you know what? I'm also not going to do your homework for you. I am glad we're talking about it because I want more people to know about it. But I also want people to engage with it. So please go to the Facebook page for the Coalition to End Money Bond, or the webpage. They are always sending out communications. We do teach-ins. The next time we do one, I'll make sure to let y'all know. Okay. We just had one not that long ago around the Pre-Trial Fairness Act, because we want people to not just do it because Pastor Marilyn said so, or because Bill's cool and it was on CAN TV. We want folks to be informed and to really know that this is a system that we all need to begin to dismantle.
Can you say that again? Can you say that again? What the Facebook was? Was it Coalition to End Bail Bond?
Money Bond.
Money Bond.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The Coalition to End Money Bond.
Mm-hmm. It seems that
they have a very lively presence on Facebook. I should say we, and on Twitter. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It seemed that the bill of HB 5058 is sponsored by 3 Democrats: Representative Martin J. Moylan, Francis Ann Hurley, and Margaret Croak. Do you know how it actually originated, the bill HB 5058?
So again, as far as I know, this was hold on a second. Representative Martin Moylan was the person who introduced it in January. Mm-hmm. And again, this was an attempt to thwart the Pre-Trial Fairness Act, to further criminalize people and to try to make it seem like they're trying to keep communities safe, but they're not. They just want to further criminalize people, especially people who are poor and don't have access to resources to be able to pay bond. And so if you end the money bond, let's find another way to further penalize folks rather than just, again, presuming innocence until proven guilty, which is what people are entitled to, right?
Yes. By increasing
that whole lie about, they come out and do something else. The fact is that we have folks who have committed violent crimes who are out on bail because they can afford it, right? Rich people who have done things, right? And we know that. And so it's not about that. It really is about, again, locking up folks, putting them in cages and creating a system that's just really making folks disappear out of our communities and from our families. And that's why this work is important, because if we want our communities to be healthy, we need all of our people to be healthy and to be well. I know some of your questions are going to talk about our wellness work, and that's where the connection is for us.
Let's have one more question about HB 5058. Let's say they increase the mass incarceration with it. Who benefits? Is it the people that own the prisons? Who benefits the most with this?
Well, the state of Illinois doesn't have any private prisons, right? So they're public prisons, right? So they can say, well, we don't have private prisons. But the fact of the matter is every system, from the phone to the commissary, which is how folks buy deodorant and that type of stuff, inside, they have to buy their own personal hygiene items, just in case you didn't know those things. So the folks who are selling those things, the video conferences, I have to pay to email my brother. I can email anybody else for free, but I have to pay to email my brother and send him credits so he can email me back.
So you're talking about prison profits.
Yes, and so the point is, it's not what I was responding to. It's not the people who own the prison, because the state of Illinois, people can argue the state of Illinois doesn't have private prisons, but the private system that runs the prison is making all kinds of money, all kinds of money, profiting off of the oppression of Black and brown and poor people.
So they need to have mass incarceration so that they could make more profits. And they're already making a lot of profit, is what you're saying.
And there's more people in prison in the United States than any other country in the entire world.
And it's all driven by greed. I'm so glad that so many people are spending time trying to go back into history, but the whole creation of even prison and even policing was protecting the rich people. It was never about protecting everyday people, and jailing Black people right after they were made free, finding ways to jail them and to get free labor from the beginning. And right now, there are corporations. That's the other place that's making money. And again, I'm not the techie person. I'm more listening to people's stories, but I do know that there are corporations that are using prison labor right now and not paying just wages.
There are. It's prison labor, and they're making profit off of it. They're getting paid. And
we're allowing it. So we're allowing this enslavement of our own people. We're selling our people to slavery, to the slavery of corporations, basically. That's the first time I said it that way out loud. That's pretty, they'll probably beat me if I cuss, right? So I'll try not to cuss.
Well, Just Harvest works. That's how you come in and work for economic justice, because you care about this and you want to end this. But where can we start?
I was on a webinar not that long ago, and they were talking about building the Black vote and the Black power around the Black vote. And one of the speakers, I love what she said, because she was like, yes, we have to continue to think big around these bigger issues and how to connect them, but we have to be just as hyper local. And we can do both, right? And so where we start is by engaging the community around training with leadership development, civic engagement, so that they know what's happening, what decisions are made that impact them directly, and they can begin to speak to those, to fight against those, right? To know their own power in that. That's one thing. But the other thing is to work with folks while we're doing this organizing and advocacy, also working with folks to build the businesses that they have ideas for, or that they're already doing outside of their apartments and are very gifted at it, but can't get the loan or can't get the rental on Howard Street because folks would rather keep it empty than rent to them, right? And so it's a both and. So there's direct service, there's community development where we're having conversations and making connections with the folks who do that kind of work too, who can't do it all, right? So making connections with folks, providing access to trainings and workshops around, how to start your own business, what kind of loans you can get, that type of thing. We're not going to do it all, but make those connections, right? But we are going to create space for people to incubate businesses like Anthony used to do, right? And of course, with COVID, we couldn't do that, but we're now having conversations about ways we can do that. And we did do a couple of Black business pop-ups last year that were very well attended. And it's just amazing to see the brilliance of the community. And we have to support that. We have to support it. It's not just about looking at the deficiencies. The community has a lot to offer, and we like to talk about the resilience of the community and we've also talked about, let's not just talk about how much a community can take. Let's stop harming our community, right? And let's also see how much the community has to offer. And that's why the community is resilient and still here.
A couple different notes on what you were just talking about. You look at like the Gateway Center right there on Howard Street in Clark, and they refuse to have a local business fill their vacant storefronts, which have been vacant since they started. And the only reason why Pete's Grill was there is because they were grandfathered in because they were under the L. And then also, just a note about Anthony Boatman, the Genesis Project, he brought me into the Genesis Project to speak with the kids, and he would teach them about elevator pitches and how to write a business plan and how to dress and how to act properly and all of these different things. And it was really amazing. It was really amazing working with Anthony on that and being welcome to kind of like be a mentor to some of the people you're working with. So I really do appreciate that about you and Anthony and Just Harvest and the whole thing.
I do want to say what I learned from Anthony, and I'll never forget it, is he says, I'm not trying to teach them how to go and get a job. I want to teach them how to start their own business, to do their own thing, and not have to just work for somebody else and to rely on somebody else. Because he knew how hard it was to get a job, one if you were Black or brown, right? But then let alone if you were formerly incarcerated, let alone if you had any other barrier against you, it just made it all that more hard. And he believed in, that's why he would bring people in like you and others, because he really believed in the possibility of those young folks and would just brag all over town about their business plans. And we really miss him. We really miss him. So God rest his soul. Yeah. He'd be really happy to see all that's happening. And I know he's watching over us too, so.
Yes. Has Just Harvest spoken with the landlords and such as Gateway Center and addressed the community concern that they should rent out their store, lease out their spaces to community members?
So we've talked to some that we have some relationships with, but again, that takes organizing. And what the one thing that we do know is that we need to talk to somebody and kind of get to know what's happening before we go after them. And so we haven't had that conversation with Gateway yet. But it is an important one. And I know for a fact, because I have a firsthand story of someone who's renting in Evanston because he couldn't get into the Gateway. And that's sad because those are dollars that we lose in our community, right? It's just across the street, but that's not the point is that he was trying to get into Gateway and he asked for a letter of support and everything, and it didn't happen. So I do think that having conversations, we've been having conversations with some of the businesses. We plan on putting together a more comprehensive plan where we're going to do some surveying of businesses and community members around this, but also have apprentices with us so that they're learning to have these conversations, right? Because it can't just be us. We're not the center of the community. It needs to be the community that's the center of the community. And so while we want to walk along and make sure it happens, we don't want to be the ones knocking on the door. Even though I live here, so I have every say, right? I live right north of Howard, so I have skin in it. And so, I mean, and I've been here just 20 years, so it's not like I'm, trying to speak for. When I say I love the community, I'm talking about mine, right? But it should also be other folks. And it's a way to have people think about different types of careers they might have. Maybe they never considered that might be a career. Community development, talking to your community and doing this type of and these folks know how to do it. Mm-hmm. They're talking and building relationships all the time. So what can we learn from the community? What can we learn from the young people? Again, invoking Anthony's name. That's something he would always remind us, is that we can learn from those that we think we're here to teach. If we just sit back and provide the space. Yeah. But we do have to provide the space, and we do have to make the invitation and not just wait for them to come.
Mm-hmm. For some of the young people that you talk about, do you have them as in your advocacy efforts right now? Are they learning from you and then participating in advocating for, let's say, these business spaces and more involvement by other stakeholders in the community?
Yes, and so we definitely, all of our apprentices are engaged in the organizing. They get trained when we have trainings. And we have pictures of our guys who've done who are doing urban ag down at Cook County, again, trying to fight against bond and that kind of thing. And so actually one of our apprentices who passed away in a car accident, we have a beautiful picture of him outside of county of doing that work. And so, yes, because we do believe that it's important, again, while it takes all of us, and we do need to all come together to do the work, those who are directly impacted, their voices have to be centered. And so we would always make that space, because even though, we all need to advocate for better education and that kind of thing, when you have a child speak to it, they're telling you because it's affecting them, right? And so it's important to provide space and training and development to all of our folks. Yeah. And as I mentioned, when we were setting this up, the Northside Power Table has sort of been, I don't know what the word is. We haven't been gathering, right? And so we see that when we come back more in person, that will be sort of the community council type of table rather than the organizing table, because most things we are doing in coalition. And so that'll be the table where we're bringing the community into the space to talk about all the coalition work and to begin to, have them lead it, right? Lead our connection, our input, and share it back into the community, right? So it becomes their table is what I'm trying to say, and not so much that, that place where we were making all those other kinds of decisions. So that the community can begin to decide what it is that they want to focus on locally.
What have the community members been telling you? Did they bring forth some opinions about what they see and what they really need?
The two things that I hear the most around our jobs. And you would be surprised. And every time I talk to one of the guys, they talk about their children. And I just believe, there used to be a trick that some pastors used to use where they would create all these wonderful children's programs, because then the kids would come and then eventually the parents would come, right? And it wasn't a trick. I mean, it was an authentic programming, but to focus on the kids really did bring the grown-ups. And I don't know, I mean, maybe every time I talk to the guys about what they want, they refer to what they want for their children. And so I just think that if we can begin to create something based on their ideas and engage them in it, not just send them somewhere, send their kids somewhere, but engage them in whatever intergenerational thing we can create, I think that'd be great, because they worry about their children's well-being. They definitely do. It's always, we need more positive things for our kids to do. We need things, they need to be able to have more fun things to do that's going to keep them off the street. There's not enough after school programs. These are the things we're hearing. And there are great programs out there, but we know there's never enough, right? And so I think thinking about that. But having said that, I think trying to find a way to connect them, right? If folks are needing jobs, or there's a way to create, and there's empty spaces, and there's a need around programming for children, why can't we figure out a way to resource that so that the very ones who are trying to get their life back on track are the ones who are helping care for their community and the children? Some real shifting could begin to happen, because there'll also be, I think, more of a, I don't want to say ownership, but I don't know, maybe more of a collective responsibility. I think everybody's really serious about their responsibility to their family, but there's a collective responsibility that I think is still lacking even after COVID. It's different around mutual aid and collective responsibility are two different things, right? So
Well, you do.
I don't know. I hope I'm not rambling, but this is how I vision is I talk out loud. So.
Well, you're doing a lot of leading by example. Perhaps a lot of our viewers would just love for their children and for their youth to become your apprentices. Could you give us a little information about how old they need to be, and information about how they could become apprentices? So
we just hired the 2 that we're going to hire for this season, as long as we keep the 4 that are in the urban agriculture program. Now, we did just apply for one of those R3 funds that are for anti-violence work. That if we get it, then we're going to increase our apprenticeship program to 12, and there'll be apprentices within each scope of the organization, which I love, because it opens folks' eyes to different types of work and opportunities and careers and ideas, right? To be around different spaces. So you have the urban ag, they'll be organizing, they'll be in the kitchen, they'll be working with volunteers, helping us work in the office and raise money, all that. And we'll have a whole wraparound system for them, including a daycare center that's intergenerational. Because we again, personal stories of people who are responsible for dependent adults who would have to call off of work because they didn't have anybody to care for their sister in the wheelchair, or their grandma who they're responsible for. And these were valid reasons that, you think on top of COVID, on top of gun violence, this one person was facing all of these things. And so we realized the intensity of support that is needed. And again, we're not going to do it all, but we're going to start with just our apprentices, providing that support to them. So the apprenticeship program is a 2-year program that'll be new, and it'll include, having a case manager, having some access to therapy, to some coaching, like career coaching, sort of like you were doing before, Bill, so maybe we'll call on you again if you're available. That type of stuff. And it's paid. So like they're paid. We pay our minimum is $15 an hour at A Just Harvest. We're grateful to be able to say that.
Yes.
We're proud to be able to say that, and it's only because of our wonderful supporters and partners, because otherwise, we wouldn't be able to. But we're tiny, but we want to again lead by example, as you said, Trudy. So when we march for 15, fight for 15 downtown, we can say, shame on you, McDonald Corporation. You don't pay you don't pay a living wage, but we do, and we're this teeny tiny nonprofit, right?
And I remember Fight for 15. I was right there. I was right there with Fight for 15. Thank you so much for interviewing with us today. It's really been an honor and a pleasure, and it's so great to see you here for our season finale. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Reverend Marilyn Pagán-Banks.
Thank you so much, Pastor Marilyn.
Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you.